Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show. I know it says Friday. It's because I'm willing for it to be Friday on this fine Monday morning, April 24th, Pacific time. Yeah, I know. I see it. I see it too. Hold on. Let me look. Yeah, it says Friday. But that's because we want it to be Friday. So this is a Monday, Friday, basically, is what I'm saying. Friday. Pedro Dominguez is rightly and astutely saying. But I thought today is Friday. It is not. Christopher, I don't know. He's like different time zone. Maybe. Welcome to this fine episode of the AI Show. We've got a lot of things going on today. The first one being that it's not Friday. But the dimension, Pedro, is we're hoping to make this a Friday feeling show to make our Monday morning more exciting. Where's everybody coming to us from, by the way? Put in the chat. There's about a 30-second delay I found. So where is everybody coming from? Tell us where you're coming from whilst I share what we're doing today. Not a window. I want to share my entire screen. Here we go. While I tell us where you're coming from while I tell you what we're doing today. Pandemic purchase. Number one, we are going to do Talk Like a Pirate Day, but for data scientists with R in AzureML. With our good friend Mark. And he has like a really cool spelling, which is why he's a pretty cool guy. R in AzureML with Mark. That's number one. At the beginning of our show, that's what we're doing. The second half of the show, we're going to be looking at how to make an enterprise style chat GPT. I know it says GPT, but it's chat GPT, as we say in le français. GPT. And it's pretty cool. And not only that, but Liam, my good friend, who I have done tons of these shows with, and we need to have on more often because they have cool stuff that they're working on. After Microsoft build, we'll have him come back. He's going to come on and show us a little bit about Enterprise Chat GPT. Not going to give it any spoilers, but you're going to want to stick around for that part. Second half around the 9 o'clock hour-ish. So we have a twofer today, which is good. It means that people want to come on the show because their marketing managers are telling them to. So we'll be on for again 8:30 to about 9. We're gonna do R and AzureML ish-esque. And then for the second part, we're gonna do Enterprise Chat GPT with Liam Cavanagh. Again, it's gonna be delightful. And number 3, I don't know how much time we're gonna have because you're gonna have a lot of questions about all of these things, and we're trying to jam-pack this. Jam-packed AI show today. So I don't know how much we'll have time after that. We'll look at our projects and make some decisions because I've told Peggy, who is our fantastic producer in the back end, as well as Laura, our fantastic producer in the back end as well, that we need to do some shows where we just hang out and write some code, right? And so we're probably going to start doing that in the summer when no one's hanging out. Yeah, everyone's like on vacay. We're not going to go on vacation. We're going to be writing code because that's what I always wanted to we'll just write some code. All right, let's see where everyone's coming from. So this is what we're doing today. Nice. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, where's everybody coming from? I'm scrolling. Beautiful day to everyone from the Nigeria Delta. It is a beautiful place, Nigeria. I'm sure it is. Because the only parts of Africa I've been to are Kenya, Morocco. They're very different, but they were both beautiful. So there is that. So welcome. Washington, D.C. area. Oh, that's you, Mark. Hi. I did not know you were in D.C. Chicago, Vancouver, Canada, the home of the rain. I don't know. We get a lot of rain where we're at, too. It's raining literally right now. Miami, Florida. There's a song that comes to mind. Welcome to Miami. Bienvenidos. Miami. Welcome. Fort Lauderdale, Pedro Dominguez, bienvenido. I don't know. I'm speaking Spanish because it sounds like a Spanish name, but I'm not going to assume. Texas, welcome, my friend. Central Texas. Tex from Central Texas. Reminds me of that Forrest Gump scene where he's talking about all these people that have names of places that they're not from, which is great. From Italy. That is the one of the countries I have not been to that I've always wanted to go to. So, we're hoping for that. Ontario, near Detroit. The cool thing about Michigan, where Detroit is from, is if you ask anyone who's from Michigan, they're like, where are you from? Oh, from Michigan. And then they always show you the hand. Right around here. There's an upper part of Michigan, too. No one lives there. That's why they don't show that part of the hand. How long will this class run? 1 hour. If we're lucky. If we're lucky. We have Perth, Australia. Oh my goodness. Welcome. There was 1 year, no joke. I went to Australia thrice. Long flight, great people, lovely place. The Netherlands. I actually watched Ted Lasso, and it was in the Netherlands. And it is a delightful place full of wonderful humans that all speak perfect English and Dutch, which I like to call Elvish because it sounds like that to me. And then Norway. All right, welcome, my friends. It's good to have you. Hopefully, Mark is ready. Let's bring up Mark. Hey, Mark, how you doing, buddy?
Good morning.
So there was a joke we had to say because today we're doing a special show on R, which I heard you know something about.
You mean R?
Yes. Do you speak Spanish too, Mark?
I do.
Oh, what kind of? Where'd you learn your Spanish, bud?
I grew up in Caracas, Venezuela.
Venezolano. So my Spanish is weird, and we're having like a moment. Everyone just don't pay that. I learned my Spanish in Mexico because I grew up in Mexico from when I was 5 till I was 8. Went to school there. Didn't know I was learning Spanish. In fact, weird thing. Everything that I remember from back then, I remember in English, which is dumb. And then I lived in Spain for 2 years, and so my Spanish is all over the place. Because Mark, you'll tell everyone here if you hear someone speak Spanish, you kind of know where they're from.
Most of the time.
Yes. But it's a good general 80%. Other times, for me, they're like, what kind of weird hybrid Spanish are you speaking, Seth? So I just want to let you know that's. But you were supposed to do a joke about what we're talking about today.
Yes. What is a pirate's favorite programming language?
I don't know.
Can I tell you?
Please.
In Spanish or English?
Los dos.
R.
Nice. I was my finger was ready on the button. So we pre-recorded a little bit of this, and I thought we'd dive into it. And then if folks have questions, you willing to stick around, answer any questions?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it right now. So I'm going to lower this, and I need to share something. Oh, it's right there. So let's look at this wonderful how to use R in Azure ML playing. You're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show where we talk all about using R with Azure Machine Learning with my friend Mark. Make sure you tune in. Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show. We're talking all about using R with Azure Machine Learning with my friend Mark. Mark, hello, my friend. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Marck Vaisman. I'm at Microsoft, and I have been at Microsoft for about 5.5 years. I'm a cloud architect, and I work with customers in the financial services. But in the last 6 months, or actually from July to December, I actually work with Seth and other folks on the Azure Machine Learning product team, which was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So we're talking about R. I feel like there's something that we need to say about this.
Yes. What's a pirate's favorite language?
Was I too early on that? No, I think obviously this is the pirate's most favorite language. I wanted to get 2 rim shots in there. But the one question I get often is, can Azure ML do R? And I want to pose that question to you. Can Azure ML do R?
Of course. Yeah.
But my sense is like, but what kind of support does it have? Can you give us a little bit more details on that?
Of course. So, Azure Machine, our philosophy is really to be open and open source. And Azure Machine Learning has evolved. And with the creation of the new CLI and the SDK v2, it's actually much easier now to use other languages than Python, which is where everything else was built on. So having said that, what I want to show you today is really how to use R on Azure Machine Learning to do all sorts of things. I'm going to walk through an example of setting up your compute instance to use R in an interactive environment. Why do we want to show that first? Because typically the first step in your machine learning workflow or in your data science workflow is exploring your data. And that's actually an interactive process. It's really hard. Yes, you can write a job that does that for you. But when you're first learning how to use a data set, you're trying to figure out what it is. You do a lot of interactive exploration, which includes slicing, dicing, joining, the 80% of time that gets spent on machine learning and data science work, right? Which is the data wrangling and the data munging. A lot of that, the first time you do something is going to be interactive. right?
Yeah,
And then
just like Python, right? We usually use notebooks to start, and then we got to move it into a job. So this is similar to the Python thing, but in R, use R interactive. Am I getting this right?
yeah, so I mean, there's many ways to use R interactively. Obviously, the R has a console in a built in and of itself. There's a lot of there's IDEs. We have Visual Studio Code, which is what I'm going to show today. A lot of folks use RStudio, which is a great tool as well. So what I'm going to show you today is really how to, using VS Code, essentially you're working on your local machine, but you're connected to a remote instance and be able to do some of that exploratory work. So I'll start with that. And then I'm going to walk through an end-to-end example. Now, the other thing that I did want to mention is that, we love R, we support R. And recently we just published a whole new set of documents that are going to walk exactly through what I'm walking through today.
Cool. So I'm putting up below so people can go to that. I feel like I want to dive in and take a look at this.
Okay, so first of all, right, the first thing I wanted to talk about, obviously, I'm hoping that you already have some experience around Azure Machine Learning. You understand, you've gone into it, you sort of understand all the bits and pieces. I don't have enough time to explain Azure Machine Learning as a whole.
Sure.
But what I wanted to show you is this. So typically, right, in the past, if you look at the documentation suggests to use a Jupyter notebook running an R kernel. I'm going to take it a step further today, which is really using, the thing with Jupyter notebooks, it's sometimes it's not that friendly to be. You have to create a cell and then run another cell and that's that sort of thing. I'm going to show you how to do an interactive R session on Azure Machine Learning. First of all, using VS Code. Now, why is this important? Well, because it could be that your data sets are already stored, or not stored, they're already linked to from your Azure Machine Learning workspace.
Right.
So obviously what I'm going to show you today, I have a sample data set that is in a repo. And what I'm going to do is show you how I created a data asset. And again, why the interactive work is important is because a lot of times your data is already on Azure. It's already either in Azure Blob or an Azure Data Lake, or maybe it's in SQL. And you want to be able to read that data interactively. So that's like step number one in the process. So to do that, right, the first thing you need to do, obviously, is you're going to create a compute instance. Now, as you can already see, I have two instances already running. The first instance is this one that I created earlier. It's called AI Show Demo. And then this is one I called AI Show New CI. Now, in the spirit of doing the the cooking show type exercise, I'm going to show you a little bit of how the turkey is made and then how the turkey comes out of the oven.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the thing is, to actually use VS Code with R, you have to do a little bit of prep work. So there is a repo, right? I have this repo, and I don't know, Seth, if you can link to it. I'm just showing the screenshot here.
Here you go. Yeah, this is the repo right here. I'm putting it right below.
Perfect. So in this repo, what I've already done is I started a compute instance, right? So I'm going to go to this compute instance, which is a brand new one. And sorry, this wrong screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm first going to go to I'm going to go to notebooks. Here we go. So what happens is this repo is already cloned into the workspace. But if you're doing this the first time, what you need to do is you're going to create a compute instance first, right, which is already here. Then you're going to go to notebooks. You're going to open a terminal. Okay, and you're going to select. I'm going to select the new machine, right, which is this one. Make sure AI show new. And then what I'm going to, I don't have to clone it again, because here, one of the things with Azure Machine Learning is that we have this file. This is actually a file share. This is part of the workspace. So all of the compute instances that you have in your workspace can actually read and write these files. So since I already cloned the repo, I'm not going to have to clone it again. But assuming I was actually starting this from the first time, and I have, if you go through the repo and go through all the steps one by one, I'm trying to explain this also with the documentation. Hopefully the articles with the code in the repo will give you the full picture.
That's cool.
So what you're going to do here is I've cloned the repo, but then since this is a new instance over here, this is what I need to do. I need to change directory, go to using Azure Machine Learning. I need to go to CD01, prepare. And the first thing I'm going to do is I need to install a couple of different packages on this compute instance so that I can actually use R with VS Code. So I'm going
Just to be clear, this is to make the new compute instance have all the R goodness that it needs to run.
right. So the compute instances, when you start compute instances, R is already installed.
Oh,
Yeah, R is already installed, and it has a lot of different packages, and I can show you. If I type in R, you see I have an R session over here. And if I
got it.
type in library, which lists all of the pre-installed libraries, I have a bunch of libraries already pre-installed. A lot of the most popular ones, including the tidyverse and ggplot. There's some machine learning libraries over here. There's some statistical libraries. So this comes already out of the box with a lot of libraries. The other library that you need, and it's already here, is Reticulate, which allows you to use Python. You can use Python through R.
Right.
So, and that's important today because since the SDK we have, so there's two things I want to talk about. There's the SDK and there's a CLI, the V2. The SDK is Python. But you can, again, even though there's no native R SDK, you can use Reticulate with R to do any sort of SDK things, or the CLI, which is what I'm going to show today. But regardless, to be able to use R with VS Code in an interactive way, there are two additional libraries that you need to install, which are not pre-installed.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so, and that's here in this script. If you click on the script, you see here I'm installing language server and HTTP GD. Now, how do I install this on a new machine? It's as easy as clicking on the dots, run script in term. Make sure that the compute instance you're running is the right one if you have multiple. Run script. I trust the contents of this file. This will take, this can take a couple of minutes. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it's faster depending on, I guess, the CRAN.
Right.
But I'm going to go back to once all of this is done, right? Well, let's see. It'll take about 3 minutes. So I don't want to spend time looking at this. So what you end up going is after it's done, I can go here where this one's like, AI show demo CI, and I can click on. So a couple of things. I'm installing the libraries, the R libraries that allow VS Code to work with R. There is an VS Code extension that you also need to install, but that will happen. Actually, let's see if this is done. No, that's not done yet. But so you install the R libraries first, you need those. Then I'm going to start VS Code. Once that's done, if you click here on VS Code, this is going to open. Well, first of all, you need Virtual Studio Code installed on your local machine.
Right.
Okay, so that's a prereq. But once that's done, what you're going to see is, I'm switching over to VS Code. So you click on this, it's going to open VS Code, and it's going to create that remote connection. So I'm showing you the turkey out of the oven over here.
So wait, hold on. So this is actually running on that compute instance you created. And in order to get this to work, you had to install a couple of packages on the compute instance and then a extension on Visual Studio Code, which I'm guessing is already installed. And now you're literally running.
The extension is not. That's why I want to try to show this with like a brand new one.
Oh, I see.
Okay, but I don't think I'll be able to because I have to create another window and sort of so forth. But what happens is when you first open VS Code, what you're seeing here. So what you're seeing here is my local it's VS Code running on my machine, but it's connected to a remote machine. And as you see, if I point down here, it says AI show demo CI. That's the compute instance I'm connected to.
That's cool.
And then because I've already done this, you're going to get a notification. You're going to see a couple of notifications the first time you do this. It's going to say it's installing the VS Code remote server on the remote machine, right on the CI, on the compute instance. It's creating the SSH connection. And then the last thing is when the first time you're going to open here, I'm jumping around here for a second, but the whole idea here is to be able to do this, to go open up a piece of R code, right? So when you open up that R code, you're going to get a notification on the bottom right that says, do you want to install the R extension for VS Code? And you have to say yes.
That makes sense.
So once you have all of these three things installed, you're able to do this, which I'm going to show you right now. Now, again, I'm skipping around like the way my repo is structured, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 through 9. It's just sort of a logical step. But okay, so we've done 01. I've showed you how to do that. You have to basically run this bash script, then you have to connect to it, and that's already done. The second thing is, and again, I already have this done, but I have a file here that I'm going to upload to Azure Machine Learning and register that as a data asset.
Cool.
Again, why? Because I'm going to show you how to read that file into your interactive R session. What I'm going to show you in the interactive session is different than running an R job, because when you run an R job, whatever file you specify gets mounted locally. That's not the case for an interactive session. So to do that, we're going to use pandas with Reticulate to read it in. So we'll get to that. But the whole point is, before I can do that, and I'm going to switch back to Azure Machine Learning, what I've already done here is I've registered a data asset. So if you go to the data tab, you see I already have this registered data asset called orange juice sales. And if I click on it, right, I can actually explore the data. Again, I've got, I don't know, 100,000 rows. This is a data set that comes from a paper written back in the 90s around forecasting. Also, it's part of the base package. So I actually extracted this from the base package in R and saved it as a CSV just for example's sake. And we have a couple other examples in our docs that use the same data set. So this is the data. But then when I go back to, when I go back to R, or when I go back to VS Code, a couple of things are going to happen. So first things first, I opened up my R. And as you see, this is not a notebook, right? So then the question is, well, how do I actually run code? Well, it's really easy. Like most IDEs, you can actually select a piece of code. And in this case, I'm going to press Control Enter. There we go. And what you see is when I do the selection and then I press Command Enter, that's on a Mac. On Windows, I'm guessing it's Control Enter. I don't know what the defaults for the.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
It's like,
and then so first of all, I'm loading Reticulate, which is already loaded. As you see before, I actually again, this is a session that I already have stuff installed. So I'm not going to install this again, but I can just do this, install packages, whichever packages I'm going to need. So here I'm going to use my Conda environment. There are a couple of Conda environments on the compute instance. You need to use this one, the one that says SDKv2. That has a couple of packages that you're going to need. The one that we're using today to read in the data is called AzureML FSpec. So what that allows you to do is allows you to read tabular data from a registered data asset. If you were using Python, it reads it directly into pandas, but here we're reading it into an R data frame. So essentially using pandas as a bridge to come into a data frame. So to do that, right, you actually need to get the URL of that data asset. So I'm going to switch back to data, and if I go here, the URL is this one here. It's data store URI. So you can either get it from the UI, which is this one over here, and click to copy, or in my case, I'm actually showing you how to do this programmatically using the actual Python SDK. So we're going to run these two pieces of code, right? So this is the lines. Okay. So we're going to run these two pieces of code. This is just the Python instruction, and then line 27 is the execution. So I'm just going to click on both of these. I'm going to run them. Again, as you see, right, the code gets sent from my editor down to my running R session. And then if I run line 34, okay, as you see here, URI path is AzureML, blah, blah, blah. It's this really long URI. So I'm just, obviously, the more you can do programmatically, the better. So this is an easy way to do it. Otherwise, you have to hard code it, and you make a mistake, and
nobody wants that.
So this is the thing, right? So once I have my R session running, okay, now I've found the URI. I've loaded Reticulate because I need it. But now we're going to load pandas. Okay, so PD, and I'm going to load pandas, and then I'm actually going to read that using the pandas, and then I'm going to use the pipe operator, which is R code, and then janitor, which is an R package that does some data cleaning. I'm just cleaning the names. And if I do head, boom, I've read in a file from a registered data file or a registered data asset directly into my interactive R session.
It's not only cool because you're doing something like here and it's all working, but you're doing it remotely on a machine that's not even anywhere near you.
Correct.
With data that's somewhere else too.
Exactly. Right. The data's not even in this machine.
Yeah.
So
which is cool.
So this is important, right? Because again, so to get started, this is what you need to do. And then as I say here, from here on, you can really just do anything as you would do with R. So I'm just going to run all this code. So this is a script that I wrote, modified. Again, this is a modified version of another script. It's basically taking the data It's going to build a couple of time series forecasting models. And the reason I chose time series as opposed to either regression or classification, kind of your traditional ML things, or deep learning, is because forecasting is a task that many customers do. And
Sure.
and the thing is, you're not really building, you're building a model. It's a time series model. It's not really a machine learning model. I mean, we can argue whether it's machine learning or not. That's not the whole point today.
Mhm.
But
It's
the
the kind
point
of
is,
philosophical discussions that Python and R people have all the time.
exactly. So I'm just going to run through all of this piece of code. But the cool thing here about one of the packages that I did was that it allows me to do something like this. So I'm going to run this code. Oh, I need to load my libraries. I did not load my libraries. Load this. There we go. And do this. And all of this stuff. I won't go through the code. You can check it out in the repo. This does the fit, and also again, this is all time series. But what I am going to do is I'm going to run the code up through here. Okay. One thing I did want to say is in this code, this data set has about 100 different stores and I think 3 different brands. So I'm actually picking a specific store and a specific brand here. I'm subsetting the data to model, and I'm building a model for that one particular scenario.
That's
And the
cool.
reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to show you when you put this into production, how you can pass in those parameters into the job so that you can run this multiple times for different brands and or stores. But the cool thing here is, remember, this is running remotely. So I've created this auto plot. It's just a wraparound ggplot. But when I do forecast plot and I run this line over here, look,
Hey
this
yo,
is,
oh,
yeah,
that's
no,
cool.
but this, so one of the packages I installed is called HTTPGD. It's a graphics driver, a high-res graphics driver that's running right now on that remote machine, which allows you to display this as a basically it's a web interface. So I'm seeing this locally, right? As you see, this is a graph. Now, don't judge me for the time series model, please, because that's not the intent today.
Yes.
But the point is, how to do this. So, and then sort of here on down, right? Like you have the way now to read your data well, first of all, to set up your compute instance, which already has the language, our language there, but to set it up so that you can actually work with it with VS Code. So now that we've done that, I'm going to sort of go quickly, right, like step by step into, well, what does it look like when we turn this into a full, like end-to-end
Right, because there's
learning?
like that interactive part where you figure stuff out. Once you figure it out, you got to harden it into a script and run it as a job, and then move it all the way to production.
Correct. Exactly
Okay.
correct. So if you look at the docs, the articles, one of them talks about how do you, here, I'm going to go back over here to the website. So the second article, I'm sorry, the third article says adapt our scripts for production. We try to explain step by step what you need to do. So assuming assume you start from a interactive script that you created. Well, the interactive script is not going to run out of the box in production.
Right.
So you have to do other things. To your point, I want to say hardening, but you have to parameterize it, right? You have to do other things. Now, in this case, because that job script is going to interact with ML Flow, you need to like add some special sauce to it or special code to make it work with ML Flow as well. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
that's
all
cool.
described in the article. I'm going to show you sort of the end results over here. But going back to VS Code, right? So let me give you a quick walkthrough. So we've done step one. We've done step two. I mean, I've already done it. Step three, I have this script. Again, this is my interactive script. So the next part of the process is actually, I'm going to create a custom Docker environment so that my R job runs, right? So
Got it.
remember, interactive, I'm interacting directly with the machine. It's REPL, write code, read response and that sort of thing. In production, there is no human intervention. So what happens is, or what you need to do is you need to create an actual R container or what we call an R environment. And if we go back to our Azure Machine Learning, what is an environment? It's what's in here. So in environments, you have curated environments, which are environments that we provide, and you can use any of these, or you can create your own custom environment. So with a Docker file, what I've done is I create a Docker, this is for running an R job. So what you see over here in the Docker file is in this container, you have to, first of all, you have to install Python. You have to install the Python ML Flow libraries. One is the ML Flow, and then the Azure ML Flow, which is our special things that allow you to work with our version of ML Flow. And then the third thing is you need to install these packages, and that's so that your job runs successfully in Azure Machine Learning. And then the last piece here, as looking on line 24 on, is these are all optional packages that I'm going to say optional. These are the packages that your code is going to need to run. So
Right.
the best thing you can do is, you're not going to install these interactively. You definitely want to install these before you run your job.
Right. So that way it's faster. Instead of having to redo this run, you can create the exact special environment for your Snowflake job that's special and unique.
Right. Exactly. For my R job.
Yep.
So, so I've done that. And then, step number 5 is, okay, now I have my environment now, and I've already, basically modified my code. So in this O5, again, there's a bunch of, in the repo, there's readmes in every step, which explain what's actually happening. But the point is here I'm actually specifying the job run. And then I have the YAML file that I'm going to need, which is this one over here. This is the name of the environment that I created earlier. This is the source. I'm sorry. This is here's my R job. I'm sorry. The R job, the way to read this, and let me close this. I don't need this right now. But the way to read this is the schema. This is the command that actually gets run. So R script, right, which is the executable version of R, the non-interactive. It's running this train.r script, which is over here. And I'm passing in 3 parameters. One is the data file. So this is where I'm passing in my registered data asset. And then I'm passing in brand, and I'm passing in store. Now, the thing with the curly brackets, and this is the same syntax, whether you're running R, you're running Python, or basically the cool thing about the CLI v2 is that you can, for your command, you can run any executable script, assuming you have the environment set up correctly. So here I'm specifying the parameter brand 1, store 2. So if I need to run this multiple times, I would just change that. I can create this programmatically.
Cool.
The path right here. So my AzureML orange juice. So if I go back to my registered data assets, what am I referring here? I'm referring to this data, this registered data asset over here. Then the environment, this is the actual Docker container, or this is the environment. There's a distinction here. There's actually an environment is a grouping.
A built container, right?
Yeah, it's a build container, but it also has a couple other things I'm not really sure how to explain. But but one of them is actually a container that's registered in the container registry. And an environment is not a container registry, but an environment has a container, if that makes sense.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I have this, and then using the CLI, I have all this done. Essentially, I would go to my let me click out of here. I don't need to use my interactive R session, so I'm going to go to O5, run job train model, and then here I would do something as easy as, I have all my things set up, and I would say AZ. This is AZ.
Oh, I learned a secret. There's a little Azure ML button at the top that will just run this file for you. Did you know that? Top right in Visual Studio Code, that button will do this. It will run. Do you see that?
There we go. Oh, I learned something new.
I did a thing.
Yeah. Awesome.
How cool is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is going to run. Now I'm running this job. I'm not running it on a cluster. I'm running, since this is a small job, I'm actually running this job on a container running on the compute instance that I have. Because when you run jobs, you can run them either on a compute instance or in a compute cluster.
I did not know that. So now you taught me something. This is awesome.
All right. So now, okay. So this is running. And if I go back to my browser, and if I go here to my jobs, you're going to see, now this is all lumped under this OJ sales forecasting experiment, but you're going to see that, there's multiple runs, ones I've done before. The one that's running now shows here is finalizing.
So it's almost done.
I'm sorry?
It's almost done, this job.
Yeah, it should be done. Oh, yeah, it completed. Perfect. Yay. Okay. So now, basically what I ended up doing is I ended up building a model, right? And if I go to my job, you're going to see here all of the things that I created. The first, it tells me what data set I used, right? These are tags that I created. These are the model parameters. These are metrics. These are all things that I logged. right? But what I really want from here is this. I want the model. Yeah, because I logged the model. Yeah, if I go here, I go to logs, right? And then here it is. I have actually logged the model. Now the model is here in models.
I
This is
see.
my model thing. So what I want to do is, unfortunately, you can't programmatically register the model. You can log the model, right? So all of the artifacts for your job, I have my model, I have my output. So that forecasting plot that we saw before, I logged it as part of the job. I've
Cool.
got all the user logs, and this is cool, right? Because you can actually log your visualizations as well. So then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go here. And now this is the model that I want to deploy, right? Again, don't judge me on the time series. I'm just saying this is the model
It's
that I want to
okay.
use.
No judge-free zone here.
Okay, so I'm going to go to register model. And so this is an ML flow type model, right? Then I'm going to select here the models directory. And as you can see over here, then I'm going to give it next. I'm going to give it a name. Well, actually, I already have a model registered, but essentially here I would give it the name, my registered time series model. I'm going to click on next. I'm going to click on register. It might give me an error because I already have one. So if I go back to models, right, I already registered this before. Let me exit out of here. Models. Yeah, so you see, I have actually, the model was registered twice because I registered it at different times. When you register a model with the same name, you still get the lineage. You still have the history of the previous versions.
That's cool.
Okay, so now that I have my model and I have everything done, I'm, just in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of skip through the steps. These are all outlined in the articles, but I'm going to show you at the end of the day what ends up happening, right? I can take this model, right? And then I'm going to create, an endpoint. The endpoint is just a URL, right? Where I'm going to be able to call, or this is an inference model.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing I do want to highlight though is with R particularly is in order to deploy a model, you have to, first of all, you have to package it in a certain way. That's explained in the article. You have to create it. And then you have to use the Plumber package, which is essentially a way of serving R functions as APIs. So with Python, you can do this directly without having to do all the custom code. With R or any other language that you might want to use, you will have to create your own sort of scaffolding.
Got it.
But regardless, nonetheless, at the end of the day, what counts is this. So I have an endpoint. Now the endpoint is just an endpoint. It's just a URL. But then within the endpoint, you have a deployment, which is what actually has the model in and of itself. And once this opens, I'll show you. Right. So here I already have this deployed. Again, if you go step by step in the code, the YAML files are there. There's a couple of ones where you actually have to, well, sorry, let me take a step back. Here I'm using a container image. I needed to build a second image, which was different from the first image because the first image was to run my job. The second image is to serve my model. So I need a different set of packages. But I still had to build that image. But I built it as a container image directly, not as an environment. And that's just it's just a function of the way the system is, the service is designed.
That's so
cool. Here's my endpoint, and then I can actually, here it is deployed. And now what I can do here is I can actually test this. And if you go to the documentation, and all of this is outlined in these articles, right? If I go back to my articles, and I'm going to click on deploy model, I'm just going to go down here at the end, and I'm going to grab this, which is, I'm going to grab this, which is the JSON that I sent. Boom. So
nice.
Now, so now I passed in. So the way the time series models work, or the one I built, is you give it the number of periods to forecast. And I gave it 2 periods, and I get, there's a lot more data here. I mean, you can decide what elements of the output in the code. This is actually what's done in the code. But here I'm displaying everything that the forecast produces. Now, if I want more, I could do 10 and just do this. And there we go. Now I actually have 10 data points in the future to forecast.
Well, Mark, this is awesome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be able to share this with all of you.
And the cool thing is that, like, you showed us from the beginning, from interactivity all the way to job, to model, to the right environment, all the way to deployment. Dude, thanks so much for spending some time with us, my friend.
I'm happy to. I've been an R user for a long time. I'm pretty involved with the community. I teach R. and it's still sort of my go-to default tool. So I'm happy that we can use it. I'm happy that we can show people how to use that language in our platform, because a lot of customers use multiple languages, are included in one of them. So again, I'm just really, really happy to be able to help anyone that wants to do more stuff on Azure Machine Learning be successful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, my friend. And thank you so much for watching. We're learning all about how to use R with Azure Machine Learning with my friend Mark. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. How about them apples? That was glorious, Mark. You had 2 questions in the chat. Do you want to tell us briefly what they were about and maybe how you answered them?
Yes, the first one, so Anno was asking about, it says that they've been playing around with Python functions like model register. Now, I'm assuming that you're trying to run that in an interactive Python session, or maybe using Reticulate to interact with the MLflow registry. So you can't really, the way the platform is set up right now, you can't, at least from an R session, even in an interactive session, you can't interact directly with the MLflow backend. That's not the case with a running job. So with a running job, if you look at the docs, at the articles and the repo, there is a helper script that provides all that scaffolding. So right now you can't, you can set it up. I mean, you can run your the way to think about it is design your function in an interactive way, and then when you create your script that runs as a job, you would do all of that. You would do the logging to the registry there. I say logging, I didn't say register. So there's 2 steps in a model, right? One is logging an artifact, and an artifact could be a visualization, it could be an output file, whatever, sort of anything you produce with a script. And you can produce a model as well. Registering is the second step, which you still have to do manually. Like I said, it's just the way the platform is set up right now. That was question number 1. The question number 2 is, let's see here. I think there was the second question. Is RMS Learn planned for using R in Azure Machine Learning? I am not aware of one, but it's a great idea.
That's a great idea. Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure. I mean, the cool thing is that you took us end to end, and I thought that was delightful. So thank you for being with us, bud.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. Hope to do this again soon.
All right, we'll see you, bud. All right, it's time for Liam Cavanagh. Liam, you ready? Look at this dude. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing great, Seth. Happy Monday. It's like I'm just so I'm feeling so comfortable. I see some people from Ontario, which is where I'm from. I can see how Kraken fans. I'm feeling great.
This is the happening place, Liam, when we talk all about cool AI stuff. And you brought some really cool stuff, and I feel like we just need to just dive into it. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. You're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show, where we talk all about making enterprise GPT real with Azure Cognitive Search and Azure OpenAI Service with my friend Liam Cavanagh. Make sure you tune in. Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show, where we're talking all about making enterprise GPT real with Azure Cognitive Search and Azure OpenAI Service with my friend Liam. Liam, it's been a while since you've been on the show, my friend.
It has been a while, but hopefully I can make it up with a couple of cool things to talk about today.
Well, anytime there's GPT and stuff and search, I'm super excited. Liam, for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Liam Cavanagh. I am the group product manager for Cognitive Search, and I lead the product group building out search and chat experiences or organizational data.
I love it. So I understand, because we've talked about cognitive search, and I even did full demos with skills, and it's the greatest thing ever since sliced bread. But now you're telling me about GPT stuff, and when people hear GPT, they're thinking ChatGPT. So can you tell us a little bit how you're kind of putting these two things together?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Seth, I have a demo. Do you mind if I switch over to the demo so we can kind of walk through that?
Let's go to the screen right here. Here it is.
Cool. So in this demo, what I'm going to show you is basically what we've heard from customers ever since ChatGPT came out. What we heard is that they love the experience. They love the ability to be able to interact with it in a natural way. But we heard what people really wanted to be able to do, at least in organizations, is be able to do that over their data, using their own enterprise data to be able to interact through that and be able to ask natural questions. And
Interesting.
so when you ask about search, that's where we tie this in, is that search is such a great place to be able to retrieve useful information that we can then use as part of the ChatGPT experience.
So can I ask a question though? Because this is important because I want to make sure we're understanding correctly. Are you getting customer data and putting and like redoing the model, or is it something different than that?
No, that's a great question, because you are absolutely not taking enterprise or organizational data and injecting it into a model.
Okay.
That can actually be, in many cases with the amount of content organizations, very costly, very time consuming. So a pattern that we're using is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation.
I see.
And what that means is that we're retrieving information from the search service. All that information is stored within an organization's search service that they own. And it retrieves that, and then it augments the answer using the Azure OpenAI model.
I see. Well, I'd love to see this in practice.
Cool. So why don't I actually walk through an example? In this
Let's do it.
demonstration, we'll actually share a link to where you can actually download the code to reproduce this yourself. But what I want to do is show you an example where, imagine, if you will, you are in an organization and you wanted to be able to take all of your HR documents, such as this one, which talks about the employee handbook. We have this, which is one of the many health plans from a fictitious company called Contoso.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine you wanted to be able to use that information, but be able to have a chat experience over it. So I'm going to go back into this information, or into this application. And by the way, we have used Azure Cognitive Search to ingest all of that content so that it's searchable. So let me choose one of these example questions, such as, what's included in my health plan? And what's happening right now is the first stage is it's going to Cognitive Search, and it's trying to retrieve, or that RAG pattern, trying to retrieve potentially useful information that it then injects into Azure OpenAI as a prompt and tries to answer my question. And as you can see here, I think it did pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's cool.
Thanks. And so if we see here, there's a couple of things that I really want to highlight. First, there was no hallucination. There was nothing where the model made up an answer. It was told to only answer if you can find it in that content. And let me actually even click on one of these citations where you can actually go and view and actually validate that it's correct. And that allows us to tie these together, Seth.
That's cool. And I think the cool part about this is, if I understood this right, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding, you're basically taking the query that the person, or the chat, message, and you're searching in Azure Cognitive Search for stuff related to that message, and then you're putting that text into the prompt that then the large language model, in this case ChatGPT or GPT-3.5 Turbo, uses in the prompt to generate a grounded answer and not just make stuff up.
You got it. In fact, we can actually see this. We have in this demo, we have a developer mode, so you can actually see this. So if I click on the supporting content, you can see what the search service had brought back as potentially useful snippets of information, which we then injected into a prompt, what we call an Azure OpenAI prompt, that explains to the model what to do. And it also says, I want you to only use these sources of information. So it allows me to do that. And in fact, I can just continue on and just say, what about dental, right? And I can ask that to further discuss this. And you'll notice a couple of really cool things here is that not only did it answer my question, but I didn't re-ask that about my plan. It just remembered from the context that I have a Northwood Health Plus plan, and it can continue that on through that discussion.
That's interesting. How does it remember what you said before? Because the way I understood these things is you're just giving it a prompt and it returns text. How does it how are you retaining the conversation?
That's one of the great parts about the ChatGPT model, is that we can actually continue to keep previous information, previous discussions into that prompt so that it continues forward, so that the context from before continues into the further discussions.
So you're basically, this is cool because it gets into this notion of prompt engineering, but with RAG, the RAG pattern, where you're retrieving information to augment the prompt. You're putting the messages in there because the ChatGPT model is very good at conversations, and then it's giving you answers grounded in the data plus what the person is asking.
Exactly.
That's cool. And so, is this hard to set up though?
It's really not. And in fact, one of the things, let me show you one other example, and then I'll show you how this is all backed and how easy you can deploy all this through some of the code. So let me just clear this out, and I'm going to ask a different question. I'm going to say, can you tell me about performance reviews? And while it's doing that, I'm actually going to take that question, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to try it in a different way. I'm going to go into the Bing translator, and I'm just going to paste in that question. Oops, sorry. I'm going to paste it in and copy it in Spanish. Let me take that exact same question and put it in. So I'm going to ask the same question in here. Now, what you'll see in a second is that this comes back, and what it'll do is it will answer my question in Spanish, even though none of the content is in Spanish. It was able to handle that. And so back to your question, Seth, what we've done is we've provided this GitHub repo, and I want to show you something. Within this GitHub repo, we have the prompt that backs this. And I'm going to show you just one sentence that we added to the prompt. We said, if the question is not in English, I want you to translate it, and I want you to then answer it. So you all of a sudden have a multi-language support with a single sentence that you added to your prompt.
Hopefully you're seeing, well, now you're seeing my face. It's basically like, that's bananas. Because enterprises have been one of the things that I've seen is that it's like, oh, ChatGPT is answering things incorrectly. Well, of course, it was trained on data that was from before now. Number one. Number two, there's some data that it never looked at, like what's our Contoso employee handbook, because for those of you that may not know, Contoso is a fictitious company. Yeah. So it probably didn't crawl over documents about Contoso, even though it may have. Yeah. They've always been asking about, how can I make it answer questions about my stuff? And now what you're saying is with RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, specifically with cognitive search, you're able to pull stuff back and ground the model and even give it instructions in English to be like, and by the way, you should translate this. And that's bananas.
It's really fun to play with, Seth, and it's really great. A fun fact that we had of this is that all of this content, you mentioned Contoso being a fictitious company, the health plan, all the documents, purely generated using Azure OpenAI. We just asked it to create content. It created over 100 pages for a health plan. It was amazing. So super, super fun to work with, Seth.
Oh my goodness. It feels like as programmers, we're cheating nowadays. It's like, this has got to be cheating. It's like the fast mode of this. But this is really cool. What's the reaction been, or are there any other details that you'd like to share?
Yeah, this has been a really popular tool for us. You can hopefully see how many people have actually taken a look at it. But I want to go back to your other question about deploying it. It's literally a matter of downloading this GitHub repo. It has a lot of information, but all you really need to do is just do a couple of simple steps to deploy it. Just AZD to log in to your subscription. You can initialize it and deploy it. So in 3 simple steps, you can get this up and running and going. So I hope that you and some of the viewers will take a look at this, Seth.
I don't know what to say. It's like you've thought of everything. It's like, I'm going to blow your mind, number one. Then I'm going to blow your mind again by programming in language. And then I'm going to blow your mind by saying, just do AZD up and you can have this too in your own subscription. This is really cool. Anything you want people to go read or look at?
No, I'd love it if they, take a look at this, give it a try, give us feedback, tell us how it's working. What are the types of things that you would like to see in this? Have you seen any really interesting things? So I'm looking forward to hearing what people have to say.
Amazing. And I was trying to like lob one up because he told me to put the blog post in a link, and there's a blog post on that for y'all to go look at. Look at
Thank you.
Liam.
That is a great link too.
Oh, Liam. Liam's awesome. Love working with him. And also, for sure, minimally, you should go look at the GitHub repo, browse around the code, and see if it's really as easy as Liam said to set this up in your own subscription. Any parting words, Liam?
No, I'm just super happy to be back, and hopefully we will be back a little bit more often with some additional cool things coming down the road.
I'm going to hold you to that. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
my friends, thank you so much for watching. We're learning all about how you can make your own enterprise GPT real with Azure Cognitive Search and Azure OpenAI Service. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care. How about them apples? That was delightful, Liam.
That was great. I feel like we had a lost opportunity when Mark was talking about the pirate R joke to try to get ChatGPT to speak like a pirate. I think that was a missed opportunity, Seth.
I know. We only have like 2 minutes left. Now, Liam, like, because I know you work with Pablo as well. This demo you made pretty quickly, right after all the craziness of ChatGPT. Were people asking for this kind of functionality? I feel like they were, right?
They were. There was definitely a lot of excitement because people saw this interaction that they could do, and they made the logical leap to say, hey, can I do this over my data? So it's been absolutely fascinating to watch. I mean, last week I was talking to customers like, hey, can I use this to create PowerPoint slides? And we just asked it, and it broke up the content and formatted it. It's fascinating to see what people can do with it.
It is. I feel like it's the dawn of the next thing in tech. You know how there's like next things every 20 years, maybe? But I feel like this is the transformative next thing that's going to make us different in the next 30 years. I mean, do you feel that too?
It's so true. It's so exciting to be part of this and just see what's changing. And I mean, it's literally been 4 months, and it's been like how fast things have changed and how much has happened. It's just exciting to see where we are and where we're going to be in the near future as well.
Well, Liam, we are out of time. Thank you so much for being with us, buddy.
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut him off. He's such a delightful guy. I love working with Liam. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on the AI show today. You started hearing the walk-off music because, again, we are running just chock full of content today that we just had a bunch of stuff. Next week on the AI show, learn prompt engineering for ChatGPT with a retail application. Oh, wait, this is the program I built that everyone's asking me for. It's not as cool as Liam's because my retrieval augmented generation pattern is literally the dumbest thing. But hopefully you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching the AI show. Hopefully we'll see you next time on the AI show live. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care.